Good evening, family. I want to start tonight with a simple truth: you are not in control of others. As much as we wish we could, we can't dictate what someone else says, does, or how they make us feel. The moment we believe we can, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But here's the thing: you can control how you respond. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of emotional freedom. It's not just about recognizing that something has upset you, but about digging deeper into why it affects you the way it does. In every situation that triggers you, there's something beneath the surface that's often connected to your past experiences, insecurities, or expectations. The moment you become aware of that, you take back the power over your emotions. It's easy to react on autopilot. Someone says something and immediately your heart races, your mind starts spinning, and before you know it, you're lost in the emotion of the moment. But what if you could pause just for a second? What if you could stop and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What is it about this person's words or actions that's striking such a deep chord inside me? The truth is, you are not just reacting to what's happening right now. You're reacting to everything that has ever happened in your life that has shaped your view of the world. Every hurt, every disappointment, every past trauma, it all contributes to how you interpret the actions of others. Self-awareness means recognizing those patterns, understanding where they come from, and not letting them control you. Let me tell you something important about self-awareness. It's not about blaming yourself or others for how you feel. It's about taking responsibility. When you understand why something triggers you, you take the power away from that external situation. Instead of letting someone's actions control your emotions, you take a step back and say, I'm going to choose how I feel about this. When you operate with self-awareness, you realize that your emotions are yours to manage. You don't give them away to anyone else. You stop handing over the keys to your peace. It's like having a personal emotional thermostat. You know what it feels like when things are getting too hot or cold, and you can adjust accordingly. You become more in tune with your own internal world, and when you're more aware, you're better equipped to handle what life throws at you. Self-awareness isn't something that happens overnight. It's a practice, a muscle you build over time. And yes, it can be uncomfortable at times because it requires honesty with yourself. It requires asking tough questions and sitting with uncomfortable truths. But the more you embrace it, the more you free yourself from the control that external circumstances and people have over your emotions. When you know yourself, you can't be manipulated by others. The things that once upset you don't have the same power anymore. Why? Because you see through them. You understand that their words are just a reflection of where they're coming from, and it has nothing to do with your worth or value. You get to decide how you respond based on your own self-awareness and understanding. The power of your life is not in what happens to you, but in how you respond to it. In every situation, you have the ability to choose your reaction. The world can throw its negativity, its hurt, its chaos your way, but how you respond is your choice. It's like standing in front of a storm and deciding whether you will let the wind push you around or whether you will stand firm, grounded in your peace. It's so easy to react impulsively. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you're ready to lay on the horn or shout. Someone makes a rude comment and the instinct is to snap back or carry that anger with you for the rest of the day. It's almost as though the world conditions us to be reactive, to let our emotions be governed by the behavior of others. But you don't have to live like that. Choosing your response means you become intentional with your emotional energy. Instead of letting your feelings be dictated by whatever is happening around you, you become a steward of your own emotions. You are no longer a victim of the situation, but a creator of how you experience it. You can choose whether to let that person's harsh words fuel your anger or whether to let them slide off, knowing that you don't have to let their opinion define you. What makes this even more powerful is the realization that you can't control the actions of others, but you can control how much weight you give them. When someone criticizes you, insults you, or mistreats you, their words can only hurt you if you let them. If you choose not to internalize their actions, they lose their power. You start to understand that someone else's opinion, no matter how loudly they express it, doesn't have to disrupt your inner peace. Their reaction is a reflection of them, not of you. The moment you stop reacting and start responding, you also begin to understand that not every battle is worth fighting. There's wisdom in choosing to walk away from certain situations. Not every comment needs a response. Not every confrontation needs to be engaged. Sometimes the best response is to stay calm, maintain your peace, and walk away from unnecessary drama. Choosing your response also requires emotional maturity. It's about recognizing that your emotions, just like everything else, are temporary. Feelings of anger, frustration, or resentment don't define you. They may come, but they don't have to stay. And the quicker you realize this, the quicker you can move through difficult situations without allowing them to take root in your heart. The key to this is self-control. Self-control is not about suppressing your emotions. It's about redirecting them in a healthier way. Instead of allowing yourself to be swept away by the storm of negative emotions, you choose to stand in the eye of the storm where things are calm. You decide not to let your emotions rule you, but rather you take the driver's seat of your reactions. Perspective is everything. How you see a situation determines how you feel about it. It's easy to get caught in the narrow view, the immediate hurt, the direct offense, the sting of someone's words or actions. But when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, your perception shifts. Suddenly, what once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle can feel like a challenge to overcome, and what once triggered deep emotional reactions might lose its power. When you're caught in the moment, it's hard to see anything beyond your own feelings. It feels personal, like the actions or words of others are aimed directly at you, like they're meant to hurt you. But what if it's not about you at all? What if their behavior, their harshness, their criticism is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their own struggles, insecurities, or unresolved pain? A shift in perspective allows you to stop internalizing what others do. Instead of taking offense, you begin to see them as human beings navigating their own issues. Their behavior might not even be about you, it could be rooted in their own challenges. When you start to view people through this lens, it's easier to forgive, easier to let go, and easier to maintain your peace. Think about it this way: when someone reacts negatively towards you, it's often more about their circumstances than it is about your character. Someone's bad day, their stress, their frustrations, their fears, they can all spill over into their interactions with others. If you understand that their response is not personal, you begin to realize that you don't need to absorb that negativity. Their actions don't define you. You get to decide how much of it you let in. Perspective also allows you to break free from the cycle of self-centered thinking. We tend to view everything through the lens of how it affects us personally. The world revolves around us in our minds, and when things don't go as planned, we interpret it as a failure or a slight. But life is so much bigger than any one moment. You have to step back and see that life is happening all around you, not just to you. When you shift your perspective from being solely about your own experience to a broader understanding, you can see that the challenges you face are part of the human experience, shared by everyone in different ways. What's fascinating is that your perspective can change the narrative. You can choose to see the same situation from a different angle. Maybe you face a setback at work. The old perspective might say, I'm not good enough, I'm failing. But with a shift, you can begin to see it as a chance for growth, a lesson in resilience, or an opportunity for something better. This shift doesn't deny the hardship, it doesn't ignore the difficulty, but it empowers you to see it through a lens of opportunity rather than defeat. This is where gratitude comes in. A perspective shift opens up space for you to be grateful, even in the toughest situations. When you start focusing on what's working instead of what's wrong, you begin to reframe your thoughts. Gratitude can turn frustration into acceptance, disappointment into learning, and anger into peace. When you consciously choose to focus on the positive aspects, the negative becomes less overwhelming. A shift in perspective also encourages empathy. Instead of seeing a conflict as a battle to be won, you start to see it as a moment for understanding. You begin to ask, why is this person acting this way? What is driving their behavior? What might they be going through that's causing them to lash out or behave poorly? Empathy doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but it helps you detach emotionally from their actions and respond with kindness and understanding. When you do this, you free yourself from the weight of their negativity and allow space for healing, both for them and for you. Boundaries are not about building walls, they are about building protection for your peace, your energy, and your mental health. In a world where people constantly demand your attention, energy, and time, setting boundaries becomes not just important, but essential. Without clear boundaries, you risk becoming a doormat, constantly overwhelmed and emotionally drained. But with strong boundaries, you maintain your personal power. You protect your emotional well-being. You learn to say no without guilt and to say yes only when it aligns with your values, your purpose, and your peace. One of the first things to understand about boundaries is that they are not about controlling others, they are about controlling yourself. Boundaries are an internal guide that helps you navigate external demands. You don't have to justify yourself or your needs to others, and you don't have to accept disrespectful behavior just to keep the peace. Boundaries are not selfish. They are an act of self-care. They are you telling the world, I am worthy of respect, of my time, and of my emotional energy. Often we fear that setting boundaries will upset others, that people will be angry, hurt, or offended by our limits. But here's the reality. If you don't set boundaries, you will be the one who ends up upset, hurt, and exhausted. Every time you let someone overstep your limits, whether it's someone pushing for your time when you need space or someone treating you disrespectfully, you sacrifice a part of your peace. Over time, that builds up and leads to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. Setting boundaries also means being clear about your own needs and priorities. You have the right to prioritize yourself. It's easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs or expects from you. But if you're always giving, always available, and never taking time for yourself, you'll quickly find that your emotional reserves are drained. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are about saying yes to yourself. They are a way of preserving your energy so you can show up as your best self, both for you and for the people you love. It's also important to recognize that boundaries are fluid. They aren't set in stone. They can evolve and shift based on your personal growth and the dynamics of your relationships. What you need in one season of your life may be different than what you need in another, and that's okay. Boundaries are about what works for you, not what anyone else thinks is right. You are allowed to change the way you protect yourself as you grow, learn, and evolve. Another key aspect of boundaries is learning to enforce them. It's one thing to set a boundary, but it's another thing to stand firm in it. If someone consistently disrespects your boundary, you need to be clear and assertive in communicating that their behavior is unacceptable. This doesn't mean being aggressive or harsh. It means being clear and consistent. When you let people know where you stand, you teach them how to treat you. Boundaries help you communicate your limits with love and respect, both for yourself and for others. In some cases, boundaries may lead to discomfort. When you begin to enforce them, people may react negatively. They may test your limits, push back, or try to make you feel guilty for putting yourself first. But you have to trust that the discomfort you feel in setting boundaries is temporary, while the peace and stability you gain from holding firm are lasting. The more you practice enforcing your boundaries, the stronger and more confident you become in protecting your space. Boundaries also have an element of grace. Sometimes, people may genuinely not know that they've crossed a line. In these cases, your boundaries can serve as a teaching tool. You can communicate your limits with compassion, and most people will respect them once they understand where you stand. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about teaching people how to engage with you in a way that honors both your needs and theirs. When you have boundaries, you no longer feel like you're at the mercy of others. You regain control over your time, your emotions, and your energy. You no longer feel responsible for other people's reactions, emotions, or expectations. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity and strength, knowing that your boundaries are there to protect the most important thing, your inner peace. Forgiveness is not about excusing someone else's behavior or pretending that the hurt never happened. It's about releasing yourself from the burden of carrying that pain, resentment, and anger. Letting go is an act of freedom, not just for the person who wronged you, but primarily for yourself. Holding on to bitterness, grudges, or past hurts only keeps you tethered to the past. It keeps you bound to the very thing you're trying to move away from. When you hold on to unforgiveness, you end up carrying it like a weight, constantly dragging it around with you wherever you go. Forgiveness is, at its core, an act of self-care. It doesn't mean you forget what happened or that you let someone off the hook. It means you choose to free yourself from the emotional prison of resentment. Imagine that anger and hurt are like chains, tying you to a past event that no longer serves you. Every time you hold on to that pain, you're allowing it to dictate your emotional state, and you're keeping yourself from experiencing peace. Forgiveness unlocks those chains. It releases you from the emotional baggage that weighs you down and keeps you stuck. Letting go doesn't mean you pretend the hurt didn't matter or that you should just move on as if nothing happened. It means you choose to stop letting that hurt control your life. When you forgive, you're not doing it for the other person, you're doing it for your own mental, emotional, and even physical health. Forgiveness is a choice you make because you recognize that holding on to the pain will only cause you more suffering. It's about taking back your power and deciding that you are no longer going to allow someone else's actions to dictate your happiness. Letting go also means accepting that people will sometimes hurt you, and that's a part of life. No one is perfect, and we all make mistakes, sometimes at the expense of others. We have to come to terms with the reality that the world is not always fair, and people may not always apologize for their actions. Forgiveness is not dependent on the other person's behavior. It's a decision you make to take control of your emotional well-being. It's about realizing that waiting for someone else to apologize or make things right is not what will bring you peace. True peace comes when you decide to release the weight, regardless of whether or not the other person changes. One of the hardest things about forgiveness is that it often involves forgiving yourself. Many times we carry guilt and shame for how we've reacted to others or the way we've handled situations. We may even hold ourselves accountable for the mistakes of others. But the truth is, you are only responsible for your actions. You cannot control how others behave, but you control how you respond. Forgiving yourself is just as important as forgiving others because it allows you to stop carrying the burden of self-blame and regret. It's about giving yourself the grace to grow and learn without punishing yourself for past mistakes. Letting go doesn't mean you have to remain in relationships where you're constantly hurt or mistreated. It doesn't mean that you should continue to allow people to disrespect you. You can forgive and still set boundaries, protect your peace, and choose who gets to stay in your life. Forgiveness doesn't automatically mean reconciliation, especially if the other person isn't willing to change or take responsibility. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart from the pain, not about staying in toxic situations. It's about letting go of the emotional charge, whether or not the relationship itself ever fully heals. And then there's the freedom that comes with forgiveness. When you forgive, you release control over what happened and stop letting it consume your thoughts and emotions. You allow space for healing, for peace, and for new opportunities. The longer you hold on to anger, the more it damages you. But when you forgive, you open yourself up to growth and transformation. You free yourself to move forward without being held back by the past. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's about taking control of your emotional landscape and deciding that the past will not dictate your present or future. When you let go of the hurt, you make room for the new. You allow your heart to heal, and in doing so, you create space for peace, joy, and emotional freedom. When you are focused on your purpose, everything else begins to fall into place. Purpose is the North Star that guides your decisions, your actions, and your reactions. It's the deep sense of knowing that you are here for something greater than just getting through the day. When you align yourself with your purpose, the distractions of life, whether they come from other people, external expectations, or even your own doubts, start to lose their power. You're no longer easily shaken because you know where you're headed and what you're meant to do. Purpose brings clarity. Without it, life can feel like a constant search for meaning. We might drift from one thing to the next, feeling unfulfilled or disconnected, as if we're missing something vital. But when you know your purpose, everything changes. You become anchored, rooted in a sense of mission that transcends circumstances. No matter what happens around you, your purpose becomes your compass, helping you navigate challenges with resilience and determination. Having a clear purpose also enables you to filter out what truly matters from what doesn't. You stop sweating the small stuff and start focusing on the bigger picture. When your eyes are set on your purpose, distractions and negativity lose their grip on you. The opinions of others, the criticisms, or the everyday chaos no longer hold the same weight because your energy and attention are directed toward your higher calling. Purpose acts as a filter. If it doesn't serve a mission, it doesn't get your time or emotional energy. And here's a powerful truth. When you're focused on your purpose, you stop taking things personally. People's actions, comments, or behavior toward you become secondary. They don't have the same power to upset you because you are no longer measuring your worth based on their approval or disapproval. You realize that the pursuit of your purpose is bigger than other people's opinions. When you understand that your mission is about serving something larger than yourself, the petty things and people that once affected you begin to lose their significance. Purpose also provides you with the strength to face adversity. Life will throw obstacles your way, and it's easy to get discouraged or distracted when things aren't going according to plan. But when you have a purpose, you understand that setbacks are just part of the journey. You begin to see challenges as opportunities to grow, learn, and refine your character. Instead of letting difficulty derail you, you let it fuel your determination. Purpose creates a sense of urgency. When you know why you're doing what you're doing, it propels you forward, even when things are tough. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone to something greater. The clarity that comes with purpose also helps you prioritize. In today's fast-paced world, there are so many demands on our time and attention. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of other people's needs and desires. But when you are focused on your purpose, you have the ability to say no to distractions and say yes to what truly matters. You are no longer pulled in a million directions. You become intentional about where you direct your energy and how you spend your time. Purpose brings focus, and focus brings fulfillment. Additionally, living with purpose helps you maintain a deep sense of inner peace no matter what's going on around you. It shifts your perspective on life's difficulties. Instead of seeing problems as insurmountable challenges, you start to view them as part of the process of fulfilling your purpose. Every setback becomes a lesson, every hardship an opportunity to grow stronger. Purpose helps you put everything into perspective, allowing you to stay calm, composed, and focused even in the midst of storms. When you're aligned with your purpose, you stop chasing external validation. The constant need for approval, praise, or recognition from others begins to fade because you're no longer depending on those things to feel fulfilled. You've tapped into a deeper source of validation, the knowledge that you are living out your calling. Purpose gives you internal confidence because it connects you to something deeper than momentary achievements or compliments. You are living for a reason that goes beyond external rewards. Purpose also connects you to others. When you're living with purpose, you can't help but inspire those around you. People are drawn to others who are driven by a sense of mission. Purpose becomes magnetic. It ignites something in people. It encourages them to also pursue their passions, to live more intentionally, and to focus on what truly matters. By living out your purpose, you create a ripple effect, influencing others in ways you might never even fully understand.